Hello and welcome back to Closing Bell. Well, the share registry can now be based on blockchain as it's formally launched by Grex at an event at NSE today. Shankar Banerjee is Chief Technology Officer at NSE and he joins us on the show with his sense on where the markets really could be moving. Mr. Banerjee, hi, I really appreciate you taking time out for us today. First of all, what is your sense as we are looking at newer technologies and a Stockchain kind of a platform comes in for unlisted companies? Where do you see the road ahead?
Hi, Manisha. I'm personally fairly excited because, one of the biggest challenges unlisted companies have is that since they don't have the same levels of transparency and operational efficiency as listed companies do on exchanges, for them fundraising, price discovery, all that becomes very difficult. And traditionally, it's been very expensive to do the transparency kinds of things. It was very manual. It involved people and verifying paperwork. And so it wasn't really feasible to do it for smaller companies. But today with technology, we can offer this transparency to pretty much any company that wants it. And therefore, I think it's a good start. I think that it will become a vehicle for companies to become serious about raising money and becoming public at some point.
How are these kind of technologies taken globally? And is there any learning that we have taken in from the global markets on this one?
Many companies, the US, Estonia, a few other countries like that have experimented with this. The technology seems to be mature enough. The challenge, as always, is adoption. You have to persuade companies to adopt it. You have to persuade regulators to look at it in the right way. So wherever you have friendly regulators who are willing to experiment, wherever you have companies that are willing to take the risk, there it has taken traction. But there are other places where it hasn't really caught on. So that's the scenario. I think that will be everywhere.
What is the general feedback really around? I mean, we have seen the first ever launch of Stockchain kind of a company happen today. What is the road ahead from here? What are the pros, cons, challenges, opportunities that you see with this coming on platform?
See, I personally think that this is the way to go. Eventually, the traditional way of verifying companies, putting things on electronic depositories, the way we do it today, is going to evolve into the Stockchain kind of model. The Stockchain themselves survive or not is a different question. The challenge is how soon that evolution happens. Is it too early in the game? Is it too late in the game? The best way is when we are at the right time. There is also the psychological business of adoption. Are companies willing to, a certain minimum mass of companies have to be willing to adopt a particular technology for it to take off. So those are the challenges we'll face. I think the technology has by and large already independently matured to the point where we are relatively confident of the size, scale, problems with it. Now the business processes, however, have to mature. What requires what kind of checks and balances, what requires what kind of refinement, that still has to mature to the point where it becomes a full-scale production system.
Mr. Banerjee, also, the other thing really is about a general adaptation of this or, coming to age of this. Would you say that, as you rightly pointed out, it really will have to be the exchanges, the regulator, which have to take headway, into this to ensure that the general public at large or companies at large start trusting this, start seeing credibility into this?
Yes, I don't think so. And I think the Indian ecosystem is actually quite active in this. The regulators are active in experimenting, in discussing. We've created working groups across the capital market to discuss these points. So there is a lot of activity, and I think it's definitely on the road ahead.
One final question and we'll let you go, Mr. Banerjee. And this really is about the road ahead. How soon, how much of an inclusive, technology do you see for the days to come now? As you said, I mean, much it really is into depositories and a lot of shares are dematerialized in that sense. How would you look at a marriage between the two?
So eventually, I mean, this being the capital markets, depositories have been part of this discussion for a while. I think the role of depositories will change. The role of the exchanges will change. We will be able to offer listing and transparency and market price discovery to a much broader range of asset classes than we do today. Today, we offer this very effectively, but to a fairly narrow range, to a very small number of companies that fit a certain set of criteria. given this technological advance and given the evolution of these services, we should be able to offer the good parts of these services to a much broader range of technologies.
Well, absolutely. Your point is well taken, Mr. Banerjee, and really appreciate you taking your time out. So that really is the first of its kind, a stock chain that has been basically underlining blockchain that has been launched at an event at NSE today. Manish Kumar of Grex and Saustav Chakrabarti, Executive Director, CEO at Quotient Digital as well, join us on the show. They were a part of this launch today. Manish, to you first, what is a stock chain and what really are the legal regulatory standing of this as of now?
Yeah, so the underlying technology is, Hyperledger based technology that we have deployed today. And, the host of benefits that, accrue from Stockchain to companies, number one has been, that the companies will get little more hassle-free from the challenges that their record keeping poses to them. If you ask any entrepreneur, it is very difficult for them to really keep a tab on what was happening with their registry records and compliance records, etc., and and it is very cumbersome to maintain in Excel sheets, etc. So that is where Stockchain really comes in, keeps it in a digital registry and keeps it on blockchain. So there is a lot of trust that they can exuberate when they maintain it through blockchain based framework.
Manish, how many companies are part of Stockchain as of now, and what is the road ahead you see for the company?
Yeah, so there are a few companies who have been in the process to actually register and deploy their data on Stockchain. Today was the first, in some sense, benign beginning where one of the first companies did that in front of many financial institutions being represented at the NSE. This marks, in some sense, a historic beginning of a new kind, where which will spring up now, a lot of possibilities for tomorrow, where you don't need to reconcile many things, and there would be single source of truth for these records.
Well, absolutely. So, getting you in the conversation as well, you're one of the companies who've joined Stockchain today. Tell us on how you expect Stockchain to help companies like yours.
Broadly, I think it makes two fundamental big changes for us. One is on transparency and the other is on compliance. Often a lot of investors ask us questions where we do falter on the transparency aspect, because whatever we do at the end of the day, there is no independent third party who can validate whatever we are talking about in terms of our share register or in terms of how many investors there are, what kind of holdings they have. Stockchain is a remarkable progress in that direction, and I think it will definitely impact us very positively with respect to demonstrating where we stand and getting it validated independently.
How will it make easier for companies, Saustav, to raise capital, and what is the road ahead that you see now with this advent?
It will definitely make it much easier because now investors can independently validate our claims and our financial position. Also on the compliance side, often we as founders spend a lot of time getting involved on the compliance side, and we are at the mercy of professionals. Stockchain will also ensure that the professionals also adhere to the regulations and to the norms, and they do not do something which can adversely impact the company in the long run.
Saustav and Manish, thank you guys so much for joining us. So that's the first of its kind, a stock chain with an underlying blockchain that has been launched at an event at NSE, and we had that exclusive conversation from NSE and of course the launch of the stock chain as well. But with that, completely out of time on this edition of Closing. Thank you for watching.